What's up everybody, it's your shot Buie. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button as I upload videos on a weekly basis regarding the hottest topics in sports, especially if it is OU related. And this is Ballin' with Buie. Today, I want to talk about two big matchups in college basketball, two top 10 matchups, matter of fact. Number 3 Baylor took on 6 West Virginia, and then 2 Michigan took on 4 Illinois. So let's dive on in. First game was Baylor versus West Virginia. It was a makeup game. It's been postponed a couple times due to Baylor having to postpone a couple games several weeks ago. But they were finally able to finally play. There was an early tip-off, 4 o'clock. That's kind of unusual for a college basketball game. But Baylor, they lost their first game of the year. In their last game against Kansas, they did not look like the same Baylor team we've seen all year. The COVID stunt kind of altered things in their momentum in their play, and they beat Iowa State in their first game back since that, which they didn't look good there either, and they dropped one to Kansas by double digits. And in that game, they shot 34% from the field, which is unheard of for Baylor, and they shot 23% from 3, which is definitely unheard of because they're one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country, if not the best three-point shooting team in the country, depending on what you look at and how many players you take. But coming into the game, Baylor was seeking to clinch their first regular season Big 12 conference championship since 1950, which it wasn't even the Big 12 in 1950. And then West Virginia, they've been on a tear lately, won 3 in a row. They've climbed to second in the Big 12 standings, just ahead of Kansas. And OU was at second, but we know how that's gone the past couple games for them. But Baylor started the game out really good, a 12-2 run. So once that happened, I kind of thought the old Baylor was back, that they were kind of returning to their old form because they jumped out on top of West Virginia early, and they were shooting the ball very well early, but then they kind of went stagnant for a while, and West Virginia was able to crawl back in it without very much trouble. But Butler, he led Baylor Bears with 11 in the first half, and Sherman for West Virginia had 12 off the bench. He was kind of their spark for the day. Sherman, he was able to get in the lane pretty easy. He had a couple good threes for him. And then Culver, it's a big piece for West Virginia. As you know, he only had 1 shot in the first half, and he only had 3 points. So Baylor had the first half lead, 35-31. In the second half was just kind of a lot of back and forth. West Virginia jumped out with a small lead, and then Baylor kept it close for the majority of the half. Neither team jumped out to a tremendous lead, which is why it went to overtime. It was tied at 81 at the end of regulation, and Jared Butler ended up fouling out with about 1:15 left in overtime. And at that point, I kind of thought, oh man, Baylor's about to lose another game. They're about to lose back-to-back games and potentially lose their number 1 seed. But that wasn't the case. They had other players step up, and Baylor was able to get the win, 94-89, and clinch their first regular season conference championship since 1950, about 71 years. So yeah, 71 years since Baylor Bears have been able to claim a regular season conference championship. So congrats to Baylor. They've had a tremendous season. They probably would still be undefeated, honestly, if it wasn't for the postponement of their season. I know they missed a lot of key games, Texas and OU and Oklahoma State, I believe. So I mean, they could have dropped one of those games for sure. But they looked really good. They looked like the second best team, if not the best team in the country before COVID hit them. And now, I don't know. I don't know if I still have the same feelings, just because it's going to take I think several games for them to get back into their stride, if they do even get back into their stride. So if you ask me right now who the best team in college basketball is, I have to say Gonzaga. Even though Gonzaga hasn't really played anyone, I mean, their conference is so weak. And every year I feel like Gonzaga is good, and then they disappoint in the NCAA tournament, which they did beat West Virginia earlier in the year, way at the beginning, by 6 points, which was about their only challenge, I personally think, on the year, was West Virginia, West Virginia is a very good team. They're, I think, at a 2 seed right now. And I thought they were going to pull this one out, but they just let it slip away. But yeah, Baylor gets a win. They clinch a regular season title, going to have the number 1 seed in the Big 12 conference tournament. West Virginia might be able to keep that 2 spot. I don't think Kansas will be able to pass them. West Virginia just kind of drops a couple games, but I don't think they will. On to the second game of the day. It's Illinois going on the road and taking on Michigan, which Michigan has looked hot as of late. I'm super impressed with how Michigan has looked in the past couple games. Really, the past month, I would say, honestly. They had a lot of big wins. But Illinois, no, they've won 2 in a row. They've been on a tear also. They're second in the Big Ten, just behind Michigan. Their leading scorer, though, for this game did not play. He's been dealing with an injury. So I kind of expected Michigan to be able to put this one away fairly easily, but that was not the case. Michigan going into the game 18-1 on the year, one loss coming to Minnesota, as I've mentioned before. They beat two top 10 teams last month in Ohio State. They won by single digits, and then Iowa, they straight smacked them. But to start the game, 6 minutes into the game, the score was only 5-4. Illinois was up, but 5-4 after 6 minutes of play. Both teams came out shooting terrible. But on the flip side, Illinois was able to turn it around. Michigan, not so much. Both teams shot below 30% in the first 10 minutes of the first half. And then Curbelo for Illinois, he had 11 of Illinois' first 16 points. And then, like I said, Illinois was able to pick it up in the first half, and really throughout the rest of the game, they were able to pick up their shooting. And Michigan continued to struggle. That trend would stay constant for the entirety of the ball game. Illinois, like I said, not so much. They were able to turn things around, and they just kept riding the wave. They had a 33-22 lead going into the half, and that was about the end of it. Honestly, Michigan could not crawl back into it after that, and they ended up losing 76-53. Illinois put it on Michigan without their leading scorer. Michigan was looking like they were maybe contending to be the best team in NCAA right now. But after this game, I don't know, they kind of dropped a little bit in my mind, kind of where Baylor's at. I don't really know. Is it Gonzaga and the rest of the field right now? Is it Gonzaga in Michigan, Gonzaga in Baylor, Gonzaga in Illinois? I mean, I don't really know. There's been so much chaos in basketball these last, I'd say, 2 weeks. There's been a lot of movement within the top 10. So I don't really know who's going to challenge in the NCAA tournament. I mean, NCAA tournament is different vibe, different environment for sure. But we'll see what happens. I expect the Illinois-Michigan game to be a much better game than it was. It was a blowout pretty much from the jump if you take away the 10 minutes in that first half where nobody was hitting anything. But besides that, Illinois, I mean, they controlled the entirety of the game. So we'll see who can pull out the Big Ten championship in the tournament. I think that's going to be a really good tournament. Big 12 and Big 10 both are going to be very good tournaments. And Texas Tech has to play a play-in game, and they're a top 20 team in the country. That's insane. That's unheard of. Honestly, you don't hear about a team having to play a play-in game to the conference tournament when they're in the top 20. They're sitting at 18 right now. Anyways, that's all I got for this podcast. Catch y'all later. Deuces.